Welcome to the Homegrown Heart Podcast every Friday at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time with your host, Dr. Amanda Ryan, DO, MBA, interventional cardiologist, and an expert in her field. This week's topic, the physical, mental, and emotional toll that emergency calls takes on physicians. Help me welcome our host, Dr. Amanda Ryan.
The emotional, physical, psychological toll that call takes on physicians is today's topic. Good morning. It's your friendly interventional cardiologist, Dr. Amanda Ryan. We're back in studio with Danny Fletcher, our producer. We hope you enjoyed the last few weeks' episodes. PAD month was definitely a great opportunity to educate the public at large, as well as specific healthcare people about different topics. Then my interview with my mom, Karen Davidson, was great. My mom, I'm just going to say again, she's a 40-plus year experienced nurse, and really the toll that COVID took on her, the emotional ups and downs of really being in such a critical situation with a lack of supplies, support, and understanding honestly, I think she has PTSD from the experience, and so do many of her colleagues. And I think, again, acute care, you can understand it more. She was a lot more in a long-term care or rehab setting. But again, many of those patients came to her rehab facilities for a 2 to 3 week stay recovering from knee surgery or hip surgery, and then shockingly get a contagious disease and pass away. It's just person after person in that situation. At the same time, you have everybody from your CNAs to your other executives to your housekeepers that don't want to come to the facility because it's a quote-unquote COVID facility. It's just the opportunities to learn were endless for her. She got, again, to work with the state epidemiologist and so, learn so much. But when you're working 18 and 20-hour days in those conditions, it's hard to even see the benefit of what you're doing. It was just put one foot in front of the other. So again, my mom is a superhero, and we're lucky to have her out here imparting so much knowledge and wisdom that she's obtained over the years. Then last week, to get a chance to interview our very own Summer Gonzalez, who is an aortic disease fighter and survivor. As a young 20-something, she's had 2 open heart surgeries, and so many in the community have supported her and her family, which we definitely appreciate. And then Dr. Lauren Barron, again, who is a cardiothoracic surgeon in Baylor St. Luke's in Houston, who specializes in aortic disease and the repairs involved. She is an amazing resource, and I'll continue to say every week, every opportunity I get, that I definitely could not be accomplishing what we are out here with our patient population if I didn't have so many great physicians in our outreach urban areas that really work with us well. So thank you to Dr. Barron's advanced practice practitioners. So again, I think that's kind of the most common word for nurse practitioners, PAs right now are APPs, so advanced practice practitioners. Shout out to them who are really out there fighting aortic disease. Interesting, they switched from years of cardiology over specifically to the cardiac CT surgery aortic realm, and just talking about how they didn't have a lot of knowledge they needed to. I think that's one of the things with medicine that just everyone needs to realize. If you've committed yourself to healthcare and medicine as a career, you are a lifelong learner. Technology changes and advances so fast that you have to keep track of stuff. You have to keep on top of it. You have to go to national meetings. You have to go to regional meetings. You have to read. You have to subscribe to your up-to-date podcast. You have to subscribe to your up-to-date journals. You have to, in my opinion, keep up your board certifications and keep doing your board reviews. Those are the things that really keep you in any different area kind of aware of what's really going on in healthcare. So today, again, what really is the toll that taking so much call has on physicians? So I'm going to give a couple specific examples of call experiences that I've had as a physician. Again, physician burnout is real. Provider burnout is real. We've seen it in our own practice. I see it in practices every day. There is a physician shortage that is very large. There's a large nursing shortage. There's just a large healthcare shortage, period. Physicians have long been expected to quote unquote take call as part of our overall profession and calling. And yes, we fully realize that. As I read some statistics in the last couple days in preparation for this podcast, I saw the average interventional cardiologist work 73 hours a week. That's average. Of course, I'm not average, never have been. So I've got to top that by probably about 30 hours. I clearly work 100 to 110 hours a week and have most of my career, which started when I was probably 24, if you want to call that third year of med school on truly when my quote unquote career started. I would say that that's probably the case. Patients have heart attacks at all hours. They don't just pick it. It's not from 8 to 5. It's not from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., which would be my preferred working shift, by the way. If I could pick an 8-hour work shift, it would be 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm an early riser, and I'd be in bed by 9 o'clock because I like that too. And oftentimes I am in bed by 9 o'clock. My day starts at 6 a.m. and ends about 8 p.m., and sometimes I'm in bed by 9 o'clock. And then the little buzzing of my phone wakes me up maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 times a night on an average call night. I have taken call 30 days out of 30, 31 days out of 31. February, your short self, 28 days out of 20 at times in a month for many years of my career. I would say for the past 15 years, I have been on call unless I was on vacation or off, which I'm going to call it a max of 6 to 8 weeks of vacation I've taken in the last few years, which is way more than I've ever taken before. But I would say in those times, I took call every other day. And I remember telling my mom one of my last years in corporate America, like, oh my gosh, I just feel like I took so much vacation this year. And I'm like, I think I took 7 weeks off. So 7 weeks times 7 days is 7 times 7, that's 49 days off. And if you had off every weekend, she said to me, and if you had off every weekend, Amanda, like the average person might, that would be 52 times 2, right? So that would be 104 days off. So you took the equivalent of less than 1 day a week off over the average of an entire year. And you've never taken that much vacation, and it feels kind of excessive to you. So with that being said, what are those driving forces? Why do it? How many times in the middle of the night has a patient or family member even asked me, why are you an interventional cardiologist? Like, why did you choose to do this? It's surprising to me that a woman would choose to forego family commitments in order to take call. I've been told that many times by many administrators and other people. And I always said, I want to be a complete cardiologist. If you are my patient and I have a relationship with you, I do not want to pass you on to the next cardiologist to do your procedure. I want to have that long-term relationship with you, and I want to be the one to fix your heart in your time of need. And I do want that. But the toll that it has taken on my personal well-being is becoming a true reality in the last, I'm going to call it the last 1 to 1.5 years. It's common in interventional cardiology that around 50 to 55, a lot of cardiologists decide that they don't want to take call anymore. They don't want to do the emergency call. And it's really funny because your 35 and even 40-year-old self look at our esteemed colleagues, and I remember thinking, there is no way I did all this 17 years of training to do what I do, get to alter immediate life in a patient. There is no way I'm ever giving that up until I'm ready to retire, until I physically can't do it. And you know what? I'm going to say about 3 months ago, it truly hit me that when I'm done with this current 2-year contract for taking call that I agreed to, I don't want to take call anymore. I have 10,000 patients in my practice. I work 16 and 18-hour days. And honestly, I am too old, too tired, and too drained to take call all night every night in addition to that. And that's the truth. And for me, that is eye-opening. You're going to excuse my language here, but I've been told by my friends before, you live for this shit. What do you mean? And that's a true statement. I would say that I had friends out here in what we called snowpocalypse 2020. We were snowed in. That was right before COVID. We were snowed in Ruidoso. And I had my Florida friends, many of them on their first visit to New Mexico. So we were snowed in, and they ended up in my 3-bedroom house in Carlsbad, about 15 of us, for about 10 days. Because it would snow here, and about the time we would clean, it would melt away, because of course there's no trucks, this is not Chicago, this is not New York, this is a little more similar to, say, Atlanta or New Orleans. We do not have what we need to clean off our snow and ice. So we get a little better here, but then, you can't get home from here for the most part without flying through Texas. And Texas was getting ice storms. So the airport in Dallas would be shut down even if the airport here was working. Their flights literally got delayed like 7 days straight. It became this delay, cancel, airport back, rental car and back. Should we drive home? I mean, just so much craziness. Well, in the middle of that, I think we were sharing 2 cars for 13 people. Well, the hospital, I think we weren't doing clinic, but we were still taking call for emergencies. And so I got an emergency, and both of the cars were getting food or at the grocery store or something. And so, I only lived about 6 blocks from the hospital. So I just tossed on a coat. I had an emergency code STEMI. That means emergency heart attack, a certain thing on your EKG that says we have 90 minutes to get that artery open, or you'll probably have long-term bad outcomes if you survive. So I just was walking over there. And my friends pulled up in the middle of the road, and they were all frustrated that I was walking and said, oh, get in the car. And I was like, it's like at this point, I'm a block away. I'm just running to the hospital. Like, it's no big deal. And they were kind of frustrated with me, and we were arguing in the middle of the street. I'm like, really? I don't care. Like, I didn't walk because I'm mad. I just tried to get to the emergency patient, So funny. I guess they went inside and were talking to them, and they're like, oh, Amanda was just being stubborn. She was walking because she can't wait 5 minutes. And they're just like, well, it was an emergency heart attack, and she was probably nervous. And they're like, nervous? She lives for this shit. She's not nervous. She loves what she does. And, I used to watch my former partner, Dr. Rao, shout out to Ravi, in Titusville, Florida, and Melbourne, and who has an amazing practice there and was definitely a mentor to me in many ways. He used to seem so calm and collected. Those first 6 months when you're out of what we call fellowship, so 17 years post medical school and all the training, and the buck stops with you, which you thought you couldn't wait for the buck to stop with you. You're so tired of being on someone else's schedule. I think I've told you, my Dr. Krolik, who praying for their safety all on the Tampa side, because that Clearwater, Tampa area is where I trained, praying for all of the people that I've worked with and all of the residents today as Hurricane Milton really battered the west coast of Florida overnight. So let's hope that the flooding doesn't become as much of an issue as we think it might. But shout out to Dr. Krolik, who taught me very well in Clearwater, Florida, how to be an interventional cardiologist. But I was tired of drinking nothing but coffee and not eating until 8 o'clock at night. We never even stopped to eat. And I said, when I'm an interventional cardiologist, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to eat regular meals, exercise regularly, etc. here I am still struggling for that to happen. Which again, thank you, Cynthia Madrid, who's the Cath Lab director at CMC and a long-term friend of mine. If she didn't make sure I had healthy food sometimes, and my mom for making me my fruit and getting frozen meals and chicken salad from Albertsons, I probably would never have a healthy meal. So thank you guys who are really trying. But turns out it's very hard while maintaining this kind of a schedule to stay on really what is a healthy lifestyle kick for yourself also. I always tell the patients no one knows better than I do how to eat right, exercise, and the importance of it, but there are times it is a real struggle. So with that being said, I couldn't wait to be done and quote unquote on my own. Whew, those first 6 or 9 months, because in your training, in your fellowship, they let you try a couple times, but someone's life's on the line. If you're not able to get it, your quote unquote attending physician, the big boss, he takes over or she takes over. Well, when you are that big boss, I remember I found myself looking around a couple times like, oh, I'm struggling a little bit. Where's my help? You are the help. You better figure it out, Amanda. That's what I was just kind of like, yes. And again, my partner and doctors from the other group were always willing to help me. There was another young female interventional cardiologist in another group at our local hospital in Florida, and they also would help her. So we had a lot of guidance. But that's definitely, that first 6 to 9 months on your own is eye-opening. And I remember thinking, my partner, he'd be grabbing something to eat, taking a shower, like talking to his wife on the phone while they got a heart attack patient ready, like he didn't have a care in the world. And I remember thinking, I will never be that confident. I'll never be that. It wasn't arrogance, it was just calm confidence. And I mean, my heart would race. I would drive up and down 95 to the different hospitals, driving crazy. You know, again, I think I've said I almost killed myself and a deer one night. I mean, I thought there's no way I'll ever be that calm and collected. I would fumble a little bit with getting access, you know, because it doesn't even move my needle now to get a call that there's an emergency. I drove up to Roswell 70 miles each way to do emergency heart attacks for a couple years. My heart was beating regular and I was just, didn't have a care in the world except going to help somebody like I always did. And at some point I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the older, confident cardiologist. I don't know what happened. Like things have shifted. And that's a really great feeling to get to a point finally where you have confidence in your skills enough to know, and with me, a belief in God strong enough, and our teams at our different facilities here in Southeast New Mexico, that I know we're going to give that patient a fighting chance for survival, that they are getting the kind of care that they deserve. And I always, if faced with someone's life on the line and me being available, I'm always going to help somebody. But that being said, committing to that kind of a schedule where you are on call at the drop of a hat, phone rings, STEMI, drop what you're doing, get here within 20 minutes, which is what the entire Cath Lab team and myself have to do. I'm not gonna lie, I'm tired. I remember when I came to Carlsbad to start the program, one of the administrators that recruited me out here, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, we were getting the program going, and he was kind of like, well, you only have 3 or 4 Cath Lab staff that went and got trained and stuff to start with, and so maybe you guys should take like Monday, Wednesday, Friday call or something to get the program going. And I was like, oh, that's great. We'll be like, hey, we got a STEMI program in Carlsbad. You have heart attacks on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Otherwise, we can't help you. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not going to build a program where people are already used to having to be transferred to Lubbock, Albuquerque, or El Paso. Either we can provide the service or we can't. Like, well, so then it became, I was like, so I'm willing to take call 30 days out of 30 to get this program going and build it. But, and I was really on call 30 days out of 30 in Florida as well at 3 different hospitals, but I still took that much call. My partner and I took call at multiple hospitals, building up our practice, and we took pretty much call every day. So it was really nothing new to me. And I'll be honest, I was also like, in a small town in the middle of nowhere, how many calls are we going to get? Whoa, was I wrong? We took call every day. We probably did 100 cases in our first 3 to 4 months. 70 of them were probably emergencies. I went to the ER at Artesia, at Norlee, in Lovington, and Hobbs, and Roswell, said, hey, we're building a new program. If you do or don't have coverage, many of these hospitals did not have interventional cardiologists. This is what we're trying to do, provide care more regionally as opposed to always having to go to our larger centers, support our program. And support they did. And the patients, I don't know if this is God lining things up, because my team and I really needed that experience to develop our program. We literally had 10 emergency cases, I think, in the first 6 weeks, and they were all 35 to 45 years old. I remember being in complete shock. The diabetes rates, the obesity, the alcoholism, just so many different things that I culturally was not aware of. I had not spent much time in the Southwest, and really just figuring out who the population was, the oil field, truck drivers, which again remains the number one occupation of people having heart attacks in America, are truck drivers. It's a difficult lifestyle. It takes its toll on you. So all those things really helped us build a program. But I remember when I kind of talked to the administration, so sometimes we wouldn't have very many scheduled cases because I was just building up an office practice. So they'd say, well, you could send your staff home Friday. They've got 30, they only have 30 hours for the week, but you could send them home, but they could take call for $1 an hour. I was like, if you think that a full-time employee that's expecting to work 36 to 40 hours a week, it's reasonable that they go home when they've worked 30 hours a week and get paid $1 an hour then to be on call to come in and save someone's life. Like I said, I'm not participating in that kind of a program. I'm just not. And literally, it's surprising. They were like, well, they're not even likely to get called. I was like, exactly. So you're going to give up your weekend with your children. You're not going to go to Artesia even to their softball tournament so that you can make $60 to take call for 3 days? I was like, no. I was like, no, they're not doing that. They're not taking call for 2.5 days of a weekend for $60 and not getting their 40 hours. Like it was just, and they're like, well, again, how hard is it to be on call? I'm like, I take call all the time. Taking call to answer your phone and deal with issues, which again, my mom and sister have been healthcare administrators their entire careers, and they're always on call in their administrative roles, and me too. And being on call to answer an administrative problem while frustrating is nothing like being on call to save someone's life. You can answer the phone at dinner, at the movies, in a lot of different situations and give reasonable input. Middle of the night, woke up from a dead sleep to go in and be at your absolute best to utilize the most advanced technology in the world to help facilitate a life is a whole different level of responsibility. I'm going to give a couple examples of call shifts that have probably pushed me to my physical and emotional limit. I had one particular, it was October, I believe, of maybe 2018. I'm going to say that I had probably 11 cases in a day. I think I started with 4 scheduled cases. I had 7 add-ons. I had a couple very difficult cases. I think I sent 3 people for open heart surgery and probably put stents in 5 people. It was a very challenging day. I remember I had blood on my shoes, blood on my scrubs. I went home, I turned on my shower. I remember it was about 11:30, quarter to 12. I sat on the floor of my shower, tears streaming down my face, thinking to myself, I cannot do another case. Please, God, do not call me and my team in. Like, I can't do it. And again, I don't have 8 interventional cardiologists in my area. It was too windy to transfer people, by the way, that day. The people that needed bypass waited hours before they were finally able to go by ground. It was just not a good day. And literally sitting on the floor of my shower, so she just water streaming over my tears, my phone rang again. And I just thought to myself, I don't know if I have it in me. I don't know if my team has it in me, has it in them. But I just got out of the shower. I answered the call. It was a 38-year-old woman who was postpartum, who was having what we call a sudden coronary artery dissection, or SCAD, probably. I just remember, I think I just kind of went in robot mode, like, God, give me the strength. I put some clean scrubs on. I kind of roboted myself back to the hospital. I got through the case. Everything went okay. I went back home. Sometimes you're too exhausted to sleep, quite honestly. But regardless, the amount of calls I got that night after having so many patients in the hospital that had just had emergencies, transfers, which were an issue because of weather, so many things. I might have slept 20 minutes a couple times. And then I got up to a full day of clinic and covering stress tests and scheduled cases the next day. And I think I finished the next night at 8 p.m. They've done a lot for our training for young physicians to say you can only do 16 hours, 5-hour rest, and you have to have certain things. And that sounds great. We didn't have those when I was in training, but there are no guaranteed rest in the lifestyle that I'm living either. And so maybe in some ways I'm glad I had the training I did, because there are times I have to push myself to the physical limit. And the answer, by the way, to a lot of times in what's developed in the last several years, as there's been more and more of a physician shortage, and hospitals really have to meet these EMTALA guidelines, which means they can provide emergency services. If they say they have a service line, they really have to provide those emergency services to meet federal and CMS guidelines. But we'll just give you some call pay. It's all about some money. I promise you, there is no dollar amount that gets me up at 2 o'clock in the morning to save anyone's life. It has nothing to do with money. Many people have emergencies, don't have insurance. There's just no guarantee that you do or don't get paid for what you're doing. It has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with making a commitment to saving and altering lives in any opportunity that you can. But I want people to realize that does not come without a large cost to just about everyone involved. And there's a whole lot to think about with call and the relationship between physicians and administrators, and just overall how more call pay, more money is not always the solution to the situation. I read an interesting statistic this morning, again, when I was preparing for this, that said 87% of interventional cardiologists live with a partner, and 85% of interventional cardiologists report feeling very lonely. And while I was reading the article, which was discussing, interventional cardiology burnout and I thought about that, like the level of commitment that you really have to your specialty, to your passion, and what is involved in that. But then you have to be able to go home and somehow become your home self in whatever limited time you are home. That is different from your quote unquote work self, and having the ability to connect with people in a different way in mostly non-life threatening situations. And it's just not always easy. I'm fortunate enough to have an amazing husband and family support system. And I can say honestly, in the last couple years, probably for the first time in a long time in my life, I don't feel lonely. But I do feel tired. And I feel like, again, some of my 10,000 patients that are frustrated when they can't see me during the day, or our phone, they can't get through to the office, or I have to leave them waiting in the office for 2 hours while I go do an emergency. I promise, I wish I could do better, but there's only one me. And, learning to make these decisions and how we're going to really move forward as the next generation of physicians really is striving for more of a work-life balance. We may really have to shift to more shift work for cardiology providers, like several other specialties have done. I don't know that the day-night, and now again, my call schedule is extreme. Not every interventional cardiologist, is taking 30 out of 30 days of call. The average is taking about 7 to 8 days of call a month, though, I would say, and 15 is not abnormal in smaller places. And then you combine that with the 73-hour average work week. It's just a lot. So here in America, if we really want to make changes in this, by the way, this article I was reading this morning had 50% international respondents too. Exact same concerns they have as far as the call and call pay not being really what matters or balances it out, and not having enough physicians in a call rotation, and declining reimbursements make it harder and harder to run a practice. So you kind of have to keep that data. You may get nothing on call, by the way, too. So you can't really just clear your schedule thinking you might get something. It just doesn't work like that. Again, you could get 10 in a day, you could get 0 in a week. You just don't know. It's very unpredictable. So I think that's going to close it out. That was a lot to really say about the physical and emotional, psychological toll that call takes on physicians. There's a lot about me personally. I hope you're enjoying getting to know me and my team and all the people in my life, and understanding the highs and lows of medicine and this career. And I hope if you're someone considering this career, I know my medical students are listening, and I want you to be interventional cardiologists, especially you young women. But I want you to think about how you set up your call schedules in the future, and that importance of a work-life balance. Have a great week.